scrotum-based insult, which can also be affectionate. Welcome to Scotland. Hi and welcome to my channel. My name is Sarah and I love to talk about books. And today I'm doing a bit of a first for this channel. I've created my own tag. And because I'm hoping to host a Scottish flavoured readathon in November, I thought I would make this tag Scottish too. So welcome to the Scottish Patter tag. Now you might be thinking, what is this English all about doing a Scottish tag? So let me get my qualifiers out of the way. Yes, I have an English accent because I learned to speak whilst living in England. And despite being back in Scotland for longer than I lived in England, it would appear that the English accent is indelible. But my family is Scottish. I've lived here for nearly 24 years and I fully identify as Scottish. I just don't sound like I am, which is going to actually make this tag all the more fun. Mainly because folk will be laughing at my expense, because every question in this tag is framed around some Scottish patter, banter, slang. So if you're Scottish, you can have a good laugh at me trying to pull these questions off, and if you're not Scottish, then I hope watching me try and probably butchering them will give you the confidence and the courage to have a shot yourself. So we'll start it off easy with question number 1. Alright pal. Greeting. A term of endearment. Tag 4 people you would like to see do this tag. And I'm sticking this at the front in a sort of gunpowder fiction and plot style, and so Scott and Nell are my first taggies, because not only are they the king and queen of tags, but I would really love to see them attempt some of these phrases in their Aussie accents. Next up is Amy from BookTube with Amy, because she is a genuine bona fide Scottish lass who will show us how the pronunciation should actually sound. Then I'm going to go for Margaret Pennard over at Margaret Pennard, because I know she is an American with a true love for Scotland. And finally, honorary Scot Ange from Ange's Bookish Chatter, because I think some of these phrases will come in useful for her in the near future. Question number 2 is, did you? Aye. Sarcastic. Said when you don't believe someone.
Oh, did you? Aye.
Name a memoir or biography or whatever that would not be believed in fiction. And I've gone for Women of First by Edna Adan Ismail. This woman is a total powerhouse. It's humbling to read of people like Edna. She blazed a trail of change that really has to be read in order to be believed. So she defied what was expected of a girl in Somaliland right from childhood, and went on to take the path less or probably never travelled to secure an education, a nursing qualification, and to be the voice for people who didn't have one. And even like when there was the glamour of becoming Somaliland's first lady, it didn't distract her from her like laser sharp focus on her mission, which was to improve the healthcare and prospects for all of her people, but particularly women. So against cultural norms, tradition, persecution and abuse, she fought against dangerous practices, FGM, and even like dictatorships and civil war to make a difference. And I think she's incredible, but I don't think that if she was a character, she would be a believable one. Question number 3 is away in bile your heid. Bile your heid? Away in bile your heid. Anger, frustration, telling someone who is talking nonsense to get lost.
One bile your heid.
A book that made you angry. And for me, this is Inexcusable by Chris Lynch. And I bought it because the premise sounded really interesting. It's about a boy called Keir, who is a self-described good guy, and he can't understand why the girl he has a crush on is now accusing him of rape. And he has to defend his character against this accusation. In my mind, if this was done well, it could be really interesting, an exploration of consent, the relationships between young adults, things like that. But this book is mainly all bad. We are supposed to be sympathetic for Keir and to believe that he has a good reason to to feel as if there were grounds for confusion about what went on between him and this girl. The girl is literally drunk and asleep, but this book makes it seem plausible that there is a cause for confusion in such situations, and that this is a YA book is beyond dangerous, in my opinion. I don't understand who thought it was okay to publish this, and even more unbelievably, there is a sequel. No, away in bile heid. Question number 4 is Havni a Scooby, nonplussed when you do not have a clue. A book that you couldn't follow, or one that you didn't understand the popularity of. I'm going to go with one that I just couldn't understand. I couldn't follow it. And actually, it's just basically anything that is existential or overly philosophical. If you had seen my BookTube Prize Octafinal ranking video, I'd said that I just could not get on with Clarice Lispector's book, An Apprenticeship, or The Book of Pleasures, for exactly this reason. If I get to the end of a page and I couldn't tell you what the author is banging on about because they're so deep into analysing one tiny thing, no, it's not for me. I rarely DNF books, but I did DNF Anais Nin's Ladders to Fire for exactly that reason. And if I hadn't been under oath to read the Lispector book for the BookTube Prize, I would have done the same for that one. You're very big and clever. I don't get you. Number 5 is belter. Admiring or descriptive. When you think someone or something is amazing.
She is a belter. She is a belter.
For this one, I want you to pick a beloved character. I've gone for Emerense from The Door by MAGDA SZABO. This book is the story of a really intriguing relationship between a writer and her cleaner, but it's so much more than that. Emerense is the cleaner. She's a handy woman, but she's also like this total living enigma. She's infuriating and complicated, and she's just like this powerful, bruised, beating heart of the book. I was really compelled to find out what it was that was her story, and I loved how this book slowly pieces it together through the eyes of the really flawed but very honest young writer. Also, a special mention here for Vida Winter, the elderly writer in The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. She never answers interviewers truthfully about her life until she commissions this unknown, I think pretty inexperienced biographer to tell the whole sorry gothic truth of it. Clearly, I love me a complex old woman character. Number 6 is bawbag, scrotum-based insult, which can also be affectionate. Welcome to Scotland.
Getting these words.
Bawbag was in the dictionary when I was at school. It was just written in a black marker pen.
This one, I want you to pick a character that you hated. Although this can be used as a term of endearment, there is no affection here, right? Patrick Bateman from American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis is a total fucking bawbag. And not because he kills people. Or not just because he kills people. But when you strip away the violence, he's actually just a really boring dickhead. And I actually found this book quite dull in places. You know, although I don't always have to like a book's characters, I did find it hard to feel drawn in when there is literally not one redeeming feature in a cast of hundreds. And a lot of the time in this book, I felt like the character of Bateman was just an excuse for a misogynistic author to hide behind a story in order to air his vile fantasies. So get some therapy, Brett. Number 7 is Chuchter, descriptive, a person who comes from the Highlands. And we Lowlanders also have like a parallel term for people who live south of the border, Sassenachs. I don't know if there is a term for those of us in the Central Belt, and I maybe don't want to know what it is. But this is for a book off the beaten track of your country. And for Scotland, by off the beaten track, I'm going to think in terms of time periods and social class. There is a lot of historical kilts and lairds fiction out there, but in comparison, there's not as much depicting working class, normal people, particularly in modern times. So Douglas Stewart has raised the profile of this with this utterly heartbreaking and brilliant book, Shuggie Bain. And as I'm currently halfway through his new novel, Young Mungo, I can say that he's definitely not a one-hit wonder. And like for an authenticity check on Douglas Stewart's world, Damien Barr's fantastic memoir, Maggie and Me, is very much in that same setting. Kirsten Innes' book, Scabby Queen, has a female protagonist that comes from a similar background and has a more political slant. And Robin Jenkins is an earlier writer who really perfectly portrays real Scottish characters from like the 50s and 60s. And I haven't read yet The Young Team by Graham Armstrong, but I know that that's bringing this kind of, I don't know, what is it, a subgenre into more modern times. I think this is like late 90s, early noughties, I think. And I'm hoping to find even more current books that show Scotland as not just being all castles and tartan and shortbread. Number 8 is Pure Baltic. Description, very cold.
Baltic.
A book set in a cold location. And because this is a Scottish tag, you can also have a rainy option with Drich. So I went for The Snow Child by Owen Ivey. And although not all of this book is set in winter, you can kind of tell from the title that cold weather is a big part of this book. This is set in Alaska and follows two novice homesteaders as they try to scratch out a living in the wilderness. As the first snow falls, the couple finds themselves building a snowman, or a snow child. In the morning, this snow girl has vanished, but then they spot a child running through the forest. Is she a fairy tale come to life? Is she the child of nearby settlers, or has cabin fever really set in? This book's gorgeous and it really does evoke the seasons in it as well. Number 9 is Taps Off. Description of the weather, a joyous exultation when it's sunny and warm enough to strip off. Rare. Which no one will be saying today because it is so grey. But for this one, I want you to pick a perfect summer read or your most inappropriate beach read. I don't plan my reading around the weather or around special dates or times of the year, so I have found myself reading books that don't mesh well with the atmosphere in which I'm reading them. I think the most inappropriate book I read was set in an Alaskan winter. It wasn't The Snow Child, it was The Smell of Other People's Houses by Bonnie Sue Hitchcock. I read this lying by a pool in Corfu. But for me, that's kind of neither here nor there in how I enjoyed the book. It was a YA, so it still felt kind of holiday appropriate because I didn't have to concentrate too hard on it. It wasn't too hard hitting. What would have been a much more inappropriate book was the book that I managed to finish just like hours before we got on our flight, which was Lanark by Alistair Gray. This would have been really weird to read lying on a sun lounger, seeing as it's a mammoth. It's a mammoth tome. It took a lot of effort to wade through, and I think beach reads should be a bit lighter, a bit easier, something that you can follow while, you know, lazing with a ridiculous pink cocktail in your hand. Oh my god, I want a holiday so bad. Number 10 is Britain, an action, crying. For this one, it's a bit of a would you rather. What would make you cry more? Never being able to reread your favourites ever again, or never being able to read anything you hadn't already read before? And I ask this because I know that there are those who absolutely love to reread, and this might stir up some internal conflict within them. But actually for me, this is a bit of a doozy. I would have a proper tantrum if I was only allowed to read books I've already read. Because like, even though, I mean, there's probably about 1,000 books to choose from that I've read, and I have read some amazing books over the years, but I would still be absolutely gutted if I couldn't read any kind of new to me books. I'd rather keep my memories of books that I've enjoyed, but always have the opportunity to be trying new authors, new stories, new topics. That's the sort of reader I am. Number 10 is go on your sale. Encouragement. Go for it.
Go on your sale!
A book that lived up to the hype, and or does hype shape your feelings about a book? So I've already mentioned Shuggie Bain by Douglas Stewart, and that I loved this book, but I was scared to read it because that's one of my two reactions to hype. Either I'm too nervous to pick up a book that I've previously wanted to read because hype has made me worry that it just won't live up to all the praise or to my own expectations, or hype can just totally turn me off a book. Although luckily, really overhyped books are usually in genres that I don't typically tend to read from anyway, so I haven't been turned off too many books that might have actually turned into ones that I could have really loved. But I do get that hype induced anxiety a lot if it's been a book that I've been interested in, and that will make me put off picking them up for a bit. I'm particularly thinking of, I've got Girl, Woman, Other on my reading pile, and yeah, I'm looking at you, Girl, Woman, Other. Number 12 is Gin it loudy. Description of behaviour: to really get carried away in the moment.
Get loudy, give it your heart and soul.
Shout about a book that you don't think enough people have read. And for this one, I've gone with Before My Actual Heart Breaks by Tish Delaney. I read this as a NetGalley, and I am always, I'm always quite sadly surprised about how few of the really good books that I read as NetGalleys, how many of them just seem to fade into obscurity and don't seem to leave an impression or pick up any traction. I read this book, Tish Delaney's book, last year. I thought it was fantastic. It's about a woman who, as an ambitious 16-year-old, she dreams of escaping the island that she lives in, which is very rife still with the Troubles, and to live this amazing life, maybe in America. But she finds herself pregnant, married, and her dreams completely shattered. And I've got a quote here from the blurb. It was him I blamed for clipping my wings. I fashioned a cage out of self-pity then, and slipped it over my head like a boned corset, to hold myself together and to lock him out. Ugh. Oh. So good, so heartbreaking, so perfect. Read it. And that's it, your crash course in Scottish slang by someone who doesn't have a Scottish accent. The things you can find on the internet. But honestly, if I haven't tagged you, I would still really love it if you did this tag, shared it, tagged other people. I would love to see what all the different answers we can get to these questions, and obviously really would like to hear people say these Scottish words. If you do, please drop me the link in the comments below. I would love to see your video, and until next time, bye. Away and bow your head. Oh no, that's really bad. Away and bow your head. That was so bad. Away and bow your heat. Bile. Why can't... Away and bile your heat. Why did I do this to myself?